Akash Network in 2024 had a job to do: expand upon the product market fit that they found with their recently released GPU marketplace. By the end of 2024, they've gone and increased their daily income by 750% and continue to rent out well over 60% of their GPUs that are available on their marketplace. This is even as they continue to add GPUs to keep up with the growing demand. However, Akash's success doesn't exist in a vacuum. As they say, with every problem in the world that's worth solving, there are bound to be many others aiming to solve the same problem. So, in 2025, how does Akash stack up against the main competition? My name is Kaylem, and I'd like to give you a holder's perspective around the competitive advantages that keep Akash ahead of the quickly crowding space that is compute and DePIN. Let's first start with a look at Akash Network, what Akash Network really is. Now, Akash Network itself is a sovereign L1 proof-of-stake blockchain which serves the single purpose of powering the Akash supercloud. It is the orchestration layer that enables permissionless peer-to-peer trading between providers that bring on compute resources like CPUs, GPUs, and the like to sell to tenants that buy from them. Together, the two parties transact with each other while giving the marketplace a fee. So that's my simplified breakdown of Akash for now. Let's get to the three things that set this marketplace apart from anything else in the market. Akash is radically open. Akash is permissionless. And Akash is a general purpose platform. Now, we can't go and look out for every competitor out there. There's more and more coming out each day. Nor am I going to talk negative towards any particular competitor to Akash. The purpose here is to help you do your own research. I think Akash's accomplishments, 8 years in the making, will stand well on its own. So we will focus instead on how these three advantages of Akash fare against what the newcomers are working with. The first advantage is that Akash Network is radically open. This means many things that add up to a tremendous strength. Yes, the code base that Akash runs on is open source, and this means everything is verifiable and you can trust it is what it says it is with full transparency. You can see the source code. There are others in the market that are also open source, and I fully support this. This is a strength in itself. However, the majority of new players in the market are actually closed source, and that's a huge issue because closed source and gated software tend to have strong centralized control from the top down, which negates any decentralized talk when it comes to DePIN, right? So Akash, in comparison, has a open code base and does job coordination on chain so that every transaction between the tenant and the provider are all on chain. In this way, Akash's revenues are 100% trustworthy. Without on-chain revenues, projects can technically self-report any amount they please, and their work can't be double-checked, especially if they're closed source on top. So what was the saying in crypto? You should trust, but verify. And so in this way, Akash is 100% verifiable here and is a high performer when compared to other verifiable revenue DePINs. But beyond just open source, Akash's radical openness means development and product meetings are also out there in the open. They build in the open, announcing exactly what they're working on with proposals that are public and also keeping real good records of all their spending of the community funds, ensuring that everything is auditable. I don't know if any other network has this amount of transparency for you to see what's going on, but this is what the future should look like. So not only is there transparency, but you are actually open to participate. Anyone can put up a proposal on chain for the stakers of the network to vote on. Of course, proposals with any chance of passing usually have discussions on GitHub, which are open to the public as well, and encourages everyone to participate in to give their opinions. So what this translates to is that Akash Network has well over 500 plus contributors to its core base when there are only 25 or so core contributors working at Overclock Labs, the creators of the Akash Network. So you want to compare this to all the other closed source competitors restricted just to their small teams. In comparison, Akash has a sustainable community of contributors that can work for Akash around the clock and across the globe. Let's hear Greg Osiri, CEO of Overclock Labs, talk about the contributors and their effect on Akash Network.
I mean, we set it up in a way that, we have about 500 contributors to Akash Network, right? So, 25 people are employed by Overclock Labs, which is the primary contributor and a core contributor to Akash Network. But most of the contributions come from outside the company. And that's important because, if everybody's aligned in what we want to do, and if there's a lot of work for anybody to just pick it up and run. You can unlock that internet scale. You want contributions to come autonomously from developers that share your values. That's really how you scale. Right? That's how you hire without hiring. Right? We can get Google engineers that are extremely expensive and they're very comfortable in their extremely high total compensation jobs to leave their work and work full time for another company. But they share your value system. They can contribute code, and they have time. That's kind of folks that you want to attract. Really smart people that share the vision, that are not working for money, right?
Akash's second advantage is that its marketplace is permissionless. This is huge when it comes to promising builders a fair playing field for the compute resources that are available on their network. It's a promise that their access cannot be prevented in any way. Especially when it comes to AI, we want everyone to have fair access to intelligence, which means unrestricted access to compute. The problem with permissioned compute, like many of Akash's competitors, is that it makes the entire process centralized. If you need an email address to gain access, then that's not decentralized. Alternatively, with Akash, all you need is your wallet. No one can restrict your access to compute. Think of this from a demand side perspective when shopping around for where to build your product or your empire on top of. Would you want to build it with someone that can cut you off at any time, or freely take without permission from Akash? Think like a builder, think like a customer. I think the choice is pretty obvious. So permissionless access to Akash is also fuel for mass adoption, as there are no barriers to entry when it comes to integrating with Akash's general compute platform. Many of Akash's integration partners, also known as customers, that use Akash's resources do not have to grab a meeting or get into a partnership so that the teams can work together. It's permissionless. You can just go ahead and use the GPUs and the CPUs. This is why Akash doesn't do partnerships. They only talk about real integrations and details exactly how each of the integration works. Most of the time, they don't even know that the integration is there until after the customer announces it. So this is what permissionless means. It means people can just adopt it by themselves for themselves without any approvals from any central authority. So when it comes to AI agents and for the up and coming narrative in 2025, Akash is the only place where agents themselves can fully be sovereign, paying and deploying their own sovereign compute. An AI agent won't have a real email address unless it's the dev's email address, and then it's no longer a sovereign AI agent, right? This is just from the tenant side of the equation. On the provider side, Akash's permissionless access allows anyone to put up a service provider while gaining access to the greater cloud. One great example of this is when the US Department of Defense propped up providers on Akash in order to transmit classified data over the internet. Now, instead of sending that data to Amazon's providers to transmit, the Department of Defense was able to keep all of that data on their own secured servers, cutting out any risk of this highly classified data falling into the wrong hands. The only way to trust that it won't is if it never left in the first place. So in the context of decentralized AI, say for a hospital where which deals with personal healthcare data and it should not be shared with anyone outside of the hospital servers, Akash is enabling them to be able to put their server on the cloud and benefit from all these outside services while never having to sacrifice the integrity of their data to begin with. They can then share whatever data is appropriately cleaned for, let's say, larger national healthcare models to use, which will aggregate all the data from, say, all the other local hospitals, feeding it into one big AI model that then feeds that knowledge back into the little hospitals with the local AIs that give it the live data in the first place, right, to make this loop. So all of this without giving up any of the personal datas in the mix. And it's only possible if you can be your own provider in a cloud environment and not be forced to give up that information offsite to someone else, right? Here's a short clip of Imam Mustaq echoing similar points about data being secured on site, and then talking about the most ideal governance structure for something like this.
For instance, healthcare, your flops right now, your compute that you use for your healthcare is minimal compared to what it'll be in 5-10 years. But then so will your hospitals and so will your countries. And none of that can be exported outside. That has to be on location. And so again, we need to build that infrastructure. We need to decide the governance of it. And for me, the best governance is permissionless innovation in the open source space that you can take and adapt as you want.
So this is what is possible with Akash's permissionless marketplace, and is why other competitors cannot compete in this space the exact same way. Akash is light years ahead of the competition with his vision to invest into permissionless systems and open systems. Now, this advantage will only grow as the decentralized AI movement grows further along, which solidifies Akash's product market fit. So the last advantage that I see for Akash is that it is a general purpose compute platform. So while a lot of Akash's focus is around GPUs, Akash is more than that. Akash is a full stack general purpose computing platform and is capable of much more than renting GPUs for specialized use cases. So this means that the resources that it does provide are actually raw resources used by builders for whatever purpose that they want the compute for. In this way, one person might look to use the GPUs to deploy AI models, while another uses those exact same GPUs to deploy game worlds. The choice is entirely up to these builders on what to use the compute resources for. And it is a full stack, full service marketplace similar to Amazon Web Services, and is more than just a GPU DePIN. Because of this, Akash is the only DePIN capable of deploying sovereign production AI models on demand, permissionlessly. This is a huge advantage breaking into the AI market back in 2024. Companies can now use Akash's full stack compute to deploy any of the thousands of open source models there are on Hugging Face. Today, Akash maintains Akash Chat, which is a free chat interface featuring 8 of the world's leading open source models like DeepSeek 3 and Llama 3.3 and more. Take it to Turbo. There's also a Akash Chat API, which is a complete API system that is giving developers free access to model compute for all the latest and greatest in open source AI. With this API service, any developer that needs more power than what the free tier provides, they're then free to permissionlessly deploy their own models on demand and then take all of that bandwidth for themselves without sharing, right? So there you have it, a semi-detailed look at Akash Network's strongest competitive advantages from a holder's perspective. Akash is the world's only permissionless open source cloud marketplace, and it is years ahead of the competition with many years of technical knowledge under its code base, and is complete with a vibrant community of contributors that keep Akash continually shipping updates and features.